and welcome to the March Mentor Zoom. If you're just logging into the Zoom, I'm dropping the attendance link into the chat, and we're going to go ahead and get going. All right, so I want to do a mentor check-in. Most of you have done a classroom visit, so I'm going to drop a Padlet link into the chat so that you can give me some feedback on how your classroom visit went. So I just dropped the link into the chat, and go ahead and click into that link and let me know how that went. Okay, so when we come back from spring break, everybody knows that the period of time between coming back from spring break and the end of the school year, it just flies by. So I want to propose to you about the 2026-27 mentoring and what that looks like. In a perfect world, after you spend 1 year mentoring a new to profession teacher, it's always good to roll over to that second year. That's the best case scenario, is that you continue mentoring into that second year. It looks a little different. In the first year, we have the monthly Zooms and the 4 squares and the 3 classroom visits, and there's a $2,000 payment. And that's all set up because our new to profession teachers need lots of support. However, when the new to profession teachers are in their first year, they're doing everything for the first time. So it's really helpful to have a mentor alongside with them, helping them navigate through that first year. But in the second year, when they start doing things for the second time, the support isn't as pertinent to that second year. And when I talk about mentoring, remember that mentoring is helping a new to profession teacher build capacity. And as soon as they build capacity, mentoring ends. So the second year is designed to wean off from a higher level of support to a lower level of support. And so in that second year, it reduces down. There would be 4 Zooms, and you would do 4 quarterly visits. So you would do a quarterly visit similar to what you're doing right now with the classroom visits. You would do a classroom visit in each quarter. So you do one first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter, and know that it looks a little different, and I train you all the way through. So thinking about continuing on with your new to profession teacher, your mentee this year, it would be good to know what your plans are. So I'm going to drop a survey into the chat for you. If you could click into that survey and let me know your initial thoughts on continuing with your mentee into next year. Again, it's the best case scenario for you to continue on with your new to profession teacher into their second year. However, I get that there may be some of you who may be retiring. There may be some of you who might be changing assignments. There may be some of you who might not have the time available to continue, and it's just better for me to know that sooner than later. And it's perfectly okay, whatever you decide. Okay, so here we go. Onward, everyone. Thank you for your feedback. And let's start talking about March. So as we all know, spring break eliminates one of those weekly visits. So there'll only be 2 4 squares for the week of March 16th and the week of March 23rd. March 16th, we'll be talking a lot about testing and continuing on with those 4 big ticket items, with checking for understanding. And then, as always, the last week of March is the debrief of the reading. Okay. So most of you have done your February visit. That's great. In the week when you come back from spring break, the week of March 16th, it'll be good to schedule that March visit. If you're an elementary teacher and you had an opportunity to see ELA, it would be good to schedule a time to see maybe elementary math. If you are a secondary teacher, if you saw one, let's say you saw first period in March, try to see a different period. Maybe you're going to see third period or fourth period. It's always good to see different groups of students because the dynamics change. If you're a SPED teacher, maybe come during a different time in the day so that you can see your mentee working with a different group of students. So just know that we'll want to see variety over these 3 months. The hope is that every mentee will get a visit from their mentee in their month of February, then March, and then again in April. Remember that some of you go do the classroom visit during your planning time. That's fine. If you want a half-day sub, that's fine. If you want a full-day sub, there's a lot of flexibility on how that classroom visit happens. Okay, so you've done your February visit, and I'm going to drop a survey into the chat. If you could just let me know when that was. Remember that mentoring is funded out of 2A, so there's a lot of accountability on this. So it's always good just to have a record of when these classroom visits are happening. If you didn't log when you went, just an idea of when you went in to do your classroom visit, that would be great. So I dropped the link into the chat. If you could click into that and complete it, that would be great.
Hey, Michelle.
Yes.
So I tried to go in a couple of times to do that classroom visit. And everyone had the sword crud. There was one kid in there that was going to go into general ed as soon as I got in there. And now my mentee's on maternity leave. How do you want me to do that?
So there should be a place to just that on the form, it'll ask if you did the visit or not. If you say no, it'll ask what was the stumbling block. So just log what the stumbling blocks were for your visit. So why you couldn't do the visit. And that's fine. I get it. There's a lot of moving pieces in these classrooms, and so that is perfectly fine.
Hey, Michelle.
Yes.
I also, February did not work out. I went at the very beginning of March, and I'm going
Okay.
again in March, and then I'll go again in April. I was gone for 10 days, and it just did not work out in February. So can I just put, I went March 2nd, the very beginning of March, and I'm going again after spring break, and then I'll do another one in April. Is that okay?
That's perfect. Yep.
So if we didn't do a February visit, are you wanting us to try and do middle of March and then try and get in the whole 3 of them between April and the first part of May? Or
It would be good to do the
Okay.
3 visits if possible. If you can logistically do those 3 visits over the next 3 months, that would be great.
Okay.
Is it a scheduling issue? Is it just difficult to connect, or is it pushback from your mentee?
My mentee had her evaluation with her principal in February, and she said she was too stressed to have somebody else come in and observe her with that going on. And I
Absolutely.
didn't push beyond that.
Yes, in that case, I would just not do the February visit. If
Okay.
you know, if it's causing additional stress on her, I would just try to get in maybe at the end of March
Okay.
and then maybe at the end of April. I definitely I don't want the classroom visit to become a stumbling block in your ability to mentor her. So, use your own judgment, but if it's causing a problem, then I would just not go.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thanks for your feedback, everyone. We're gonna continue on and start talking about some topics for discussion for the week of March 16th. As you know, testing season is on its way. And so I do want you to talk with your mentees about the upcoming STAR testing that occurs all across the district. Now, all the details will come from their STAR coordinator. However, it is good to put it on your mentees' radar so that they know when those testing dates are so they can prepare for those. I do, and I have those listed there for you. I know many of our mentors this year are mentoring SPED teachers. We have many mentors who are SPED teachers and mentoring other SPED teachers. So know that it looks different in every scenario. So these testing dates may not affect your mentee in any way, shape, or form, and that's fine. They will affect our general ed teachers, but there's nothing wrong with just giving your mentee some information around the testing and for them to know the dates. I'm going to go ahead and drop that assessment calendar link into the chat if you're interested in looking at that. I've included the dates on the slide deck, but I wanted to make sure that you had access to the actual district assessment calendar as well. So I dropped that into the chat. Now, also the week of March 16th, it would be good to talk about checking for understanding and setting up that classroom visit for March. Now, what you're looking at in front of you is a list of test-taking strategies. However, if you're a SPED teacher and you're mentoring a SPED mentee, the test-taking strategies may or may not be relevant to their assignment. So just know that these test-taking strategies are relevant to our general ed teachers, maybe not so much in the SPED world. So every partnership is different. So use your discretion in whether the test-taking strategies are something that you want to spend some time talking about. I do want to bring to your attention that if you are a SPED teacher and your students have accommodations which allow them to use a calculator, it is super important that you teach them how to use the online calculator as well as give them time to practice. So that is something that you definitely do want to talk with your mentees about, is those accommodations, because those are really important coming into this testing season. Now, looking at those test-taking strategies, nothing on this list is earth-shattering. They're just good common sense strategies going into testing. And I'm going to drop a copy of these into the chat so you have access to them. And there you go. If you want to pull those up, it'll force a copy into your drive so that you have those, and you can print a copy and give it to your mentee if that is what you want to do. Also, in the week of March 16th, we've talked a lot about Learning Target. We've talked a lot about engagement. This month, we're shining the spotlight on checking for understanding. Remember that Hattie did that huge meta-analysis and found the strategies with the highest impact in classrooms. And checking for understanding is one of those strategies that create a large impact on students. So checking for understanding is a strategy that we really want to encourage with your mentees. And it is a strategy that is evaluated as well. So when we think about the Danielson evaluation model, 3D is all about checking for understanding and giving feedback. So at a proficient, the teacher elicits evidence of student understanding. At a distinguished, the teacher is constantly taking the pulse of the class. Monitoring of student understanding is sophisticated and continuous and makes use of strategies to elicit information about individual student understanding. So if we look at those 3D indicators in the right-hand corner, you'll notice that the first bullet point is that all teachers are paying attention to evidence of student understanding, and that could look different in lots of different ways. So I have given lots of different examples of what that check for understanding could be as your mentee is building their practice, as they're getting more and more confident in the class. They're going to have their favorite check for understanding strategies that they'll fall back to. And so what you're looking at is just lots of different ones. I know as a teacher in the classroom, I like to use whiteboards, but there's so many different ways to check for understanding. I'm going to drop a link into the chat. It's called 53 Ways to CFU, 53 Ways to Check for Understanding. So this is a good one to print off and take with your mentee, because it just gives a lot of different ways for any teacher, especially a new to profession teacher who's building capacity and trying out different strategies and finding the ones that fall into their teaching style and ones that they want to continue doing and becoming a routine. So giving them lots of different options to try out are always a good. So, and not only do I have 53 ways to check for understanding, but there's also another document called Formative Assessment that will also provide additional strategies. Now, there's a lot of duplicates between these two documents, but they're just two good resources to provide to your mentees. Okay, now I wanted to provide another example of the lesson look fors. When you're doing your classroom visits, you're gathering evidence on the four big ticket items. You're listing all the things that you can think of that went well in the lesson, and then maybe you might be crafting one or two questions that could drive the reflection conversation in the direction that you want it to go. So the two examples you see on the left were on previous months. The new example that I wanted to bring to your attention is on math. So you'll notice here on this particular example, the learning target is solving equations with one variable. That's what the learning target is, what the teacher wants students to know or be able to do. The engagement piece is teacher modeling, guided practice in small groups. That's a very common engagement piece when you look at math lessons. And the check for understanding was there was an answer sheet. So while the students were working problems, there was an answer sheet for students to check to make sure that they were getting the correct answers. And then the closure for this particular lesson was an exit ticket, which also could be a check for understanding. Again, when you go do your classroom visits, you want to just use a short phrase for the four big ticket items, but what you really want to spend a lot of time collecting strategies for is what went well in the lesson. So on this particular example, what went well is addressing misconceptions. The teacher was working with a small group. She was using a lot of proximity to students, and the students used the answer sheet appropriately. So there was evidence that there was some routines and procedures around using an answer sheet that were established. And then on this particular lesson, look for the question that could drive the reflection conversation was which students need more practice in this skill and how do you know? So I just want to continue providing examples on the lesson look fors, and I want to be really clear that there's no expectation that you're documenting everything that the teacher says, and it's just a snapshot where you're crafting those 4 big ticket items, what went well in the lesson, and a question to drive your conversation forward when you debrief on the classroom visit.
Shell, those are
There's-
just notes. Sorry to interrupt.
Yes.
Those are just notes for us, right? We don't need to like upload that into the drive or the
Nope.
folder or anything. Just for us to have the
Exactly.
conversation with our mentee. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Exactly. Yes. And when I think about those, when I think about that form, the classroom debrief form, that's really personal information between you and your mentor. So I do not want you to upload that. The only thing that I'm going to be looking at is the 4 squares. So, and you can let your mentee know that it's confidential information between you and the mentee.
Perfect.
Okay,
Thank you.
and there's those two documents that I already dropped into the chat for you. The 53 ways to CFU, and then the formative assessment. Again, just lots of different strategies for your mentees to try on when they're thinking about checking for understanding. So I did have a short video that I wanted to play for you. There's actually 2 videos here, but I'm going to play this shorter video just to highlight what checking for understanding can look like in a middle school classroom.
Hi, my name is Abby Thomas. I teach 7th grade science at East Muskingum Middle School, and this is my 6th year.
So anything that's living, this is clearly going to be biotic.
I do a lot of checks, but I constantly need to see them. I need to see them all the time. And it's just something as simple as the quick cards, or it can just be a thumbs up, thumbs down. I constantly need to assess them. And if I see most of them, even half of them don't know it, that's my cue as a teacher to go back through and start over or review that topic.
So let's start with the first one. So at the top, abiotic is going to be red, the red card, and biotic is going to be green. So we're just going to work with the red and green card for a second. All right? Slug. So think to yourself, is that abiotic or biotic? Ready? 1, 2, 3. Green, good. What about this one? Still the same. Red is abiotic, green is biotic, dirt. 1, 2, 3.
So I think the checks are a good way of learning the information instead of just writing the notes down, to just stop and review those vocabulary words. I always include multiple examples. So if they miss that one and I see that the majority or most of the kids are missing it, it gives me time to review, and I will always include more. Formative assessment is so much quicker. If I'm going through and I'm grading everything, kids get intimidated by a piece of paper and a pencil, and I'm telling them to turn it in for a homework grade or anything. A quick little putting a card up in the air and not being afraid to get the answer wrong, it's so much more effective.
Yes, organism.
So that's just a little plug that even in middle school, kids like to have cards and can hold them up, and that checking for understanding is so important, whether it's in the special ed classroom, in the middle school classrooms, or our elementary classrooms. All right, moving on to the last week in March, the week of March 23rd, as always, is a debrief of the reading. So in the first days of school, the big ideas revolve around the 4 big ticket items, that those objectives, assessment, instruction, and strategically, the book reading focuses on assessment. For our purposes in the mentoring process, you're really looking at the day-to-day checks for understanding in the lesson look-fors. The reading did spend a lot of time on rubrics and the benefit they provide to students. And I agree, rubrics provide a description of levels of performance or mastery. On a rubric, students know what proficient looks like, so they measure themselves. Know that there are so many rubrics out there on the internet. No teacher need create one from scratch, especially with AI. AI will do everything and anything you ask it to. You can most definitely find something to start with and then modify from then. Of the 4 big ticket ideas that I took away from the reading, I would want mentees to recognize the importance of that day-to-day formative assessment, checks for understanding, as well as there should always be matches between the learning target and checks for understanding. So that's really what the reading in the first days of school talked about. Now, when we go to the 10 critical components, this chapter talks about communication systems or strategies, and it's all about teaching the students good communication skills. Oftentimes, whether it is general or special ed students, behavior is a way that a student is communicating. So the more we can model and teach appropriate social skills, the more opportunities for success in life in general. Teaching and modeling good communication should be woven into everything we do as a teacher. SPED students may need to be strategically taught these skills, as they may not be picking them up from classroom and school environment. So those are the big ideas from the chapter 8, 10 critical components. It'll be on your Foursquare, as well as the big ideas from the first days of school, though that will be on your Foursquare as well. Okay, so I have been talking nonstop, basically, for the last 30 minutes. I'm going to stop now and ask for questions and let you process everything I said and go from there. Any questions? I'm not hearing any. I'm not hearing any concerns or questions, so I'm going to move on to the April reading for the first days of school. There's the pages, as well as chapter 9 in the critical components for success in the special education classroom. And that chapter 9 is communication with parents. So that's for our SPED teachers. Will be reading chapter 9, communication with parents. I had to grab my book to look at it. All right, our next April Mentor Zoom is Thursday, April 2nd. It'll be the day before Good Friday, I do believe. I think it's just coincidental that 2 months in a row we have our Mentor Zoom on a day before there's not school or it's an in-service. So, but next month it is Thursday, April 2nd. So the last thing on the list for this afternoon is to make sure you have your March Foursquares, and I'm going to drop the March checklist into the chat. So if you go into your drive, make sure you have your March Foursquares. Give me a thumbs up or let me know that you have them, and then feel free to log off and have a nice evening. All right. Good night, Kelly.